Next up, we have Nosepass and Probopass. The former was first revealed to trainers playing Ruby and Sapphire as Gym Leader Roxanne's signature Pokemon, while the latter was one of the many excellent Generation 4 evolutions utilizing the evolutionary powers of Sinnoh's Mount Coronet. Both Pokemon have an interesting premise, which is, what if the Moai statues of Easter Island were also magnetic compasses? Today, we'll be examining if these two Pokemon with the mostest proboscis managed to rock the competitive scene, or if they never managed to get out of Stonehenge, with their amps failing to reach 11. And so, we ask, how good were Nosepass and Probopass actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Nosepass has quite the stat spread. Its sky-high defense is almost that of Skarmory, its special defense is respectable, and everything else is absolutely atrocious. To make matters even more, interesting, Nosepass also has the amazing Magnet Pull ability, as well as an interesting move pool consisting of Taunt, Thunderbolt, and Fire Punch. And it has no OU niche whatsoever, as it is completely outclassed in every conceivable way by Magneton. However, even if Magneton didn't exist, Nosepass still wouldn't be worth anything, and this would also be the case if Magnemite didn't exist either. And make no mistake, Magnemite would be better, as in addition to Magnemite's higher special attack and speed, Magnemite could also EV itself to survive 2 Choice Band Metagross Meteor Mashes. Nosepass's speed and special attack were simply too awful to function as a trapper in OU, unless your goal was for your Skarmory counter to allow Skarmory to set up 3 layers of spikes despite the combination of Taunt and Thunderbolt, in which case Nosepass was the perfect Pokemon for the job. Nosepass couldn't function in the mostly Steel Baron UU either. It was completely destroyed by the tier Soul Steel type Aggron, and even in NU, Nosepass couldn't accomplish anything. Now, it could potentially trap Mawile sometimes, but it was a much better bet to deal with Mawile by using Pokemon that weren't completely terrible in every other situation. It was cruel, but Nosepass's debut generation saw it amount to nothing more than placements on the occasional OU joke team. Nosepass stood no chance in any Generation 4 tier, not even Little Cup, as it was thoroughly outclassed as a Steel Trapper by Magnemite. Even access to Stealth Rock wasn't enough to differentiate it. One was better off just using Bronzor, as opposed to the awful combination of 2 Pokemon that Nosepass attempted to be. However, the fact that Nosepass was now a Little Cup Pokemon was its silver lining. That meant it had evolved into Probopass, which was a significant, much-needed upgrade. Its HP remained low and its typing remained weakness-laden, both of which often betrayed the defensive potential suggested by its Skarmory Eclipsing defense and its Registeel equivalent special defense. But Probopass had some genuine potential now. Now, it didn't have much use in UU, as it was almost fully outclassed as a bulky Stealth Rock setting Steel type by Registeel and Steelix, who both packed much better defensive typing, one of the largest benefits of which was ensuring they were not as absurdly vulnerable to Dugtrio as Probopass was. Probopass couldn't even successfully trap its fellow bulky Steels nor Aggron, meaning it got no use out of Magnet Pull at all. Probopass's one niche over Registeel and Steelix was incredibly minuscule, but it did exist. Its neutrality to Fire Blast and Hidden Power Grass, alongside enormous special defense, allowed it to check the monstrous Moltres in a pinch, while maintaining excellent resistances to normal and flying that let it check dangerous Pokemon like Kangaskhan, Scyther, and Swellow. Believe it or not, Probopass competed for this role with Magcargo of all things. Magcargo actually quadruple resisted Fire Blast, meaning Moltres would never be able to break through it with sheer power like it potentially could against Probopass, and it could punish contact attacks like U-Turn with a burn from Flame Body, and Magcargo had instant healing and recover. However, it was a trade-off. Magcargo was Stealth Rock weak, while Probopass resisted the move, and it was vulnerable to Toxic, while Probopass was immune, meaning Probopass was 100% better against one of the most irritating Moltres variants, the Substitute Toxic set. Probopass also had the capability of providing Thunder Wave support for its team. It was a small role in UU, but it was a role nonetheless. Of course, Probopass being so niche in UU meant it wasn't seen much. It dropped to NU, where it still struggled to truly establish itself within the tier. Its biggest problem was that it had to compete with one of the best Pokemon in the tier, Regirock, for the role of bulky Rock-type Stealth Rock setter. Regirock's pure Rock typing not only gave it an excellent fire resistance, it also meant it wasn't weighed down by the quadruple weakness to ground and fighting that so plagued Probopass. This allowed Regirock to check pretty much everything better, including some of the most threatening Pokemon in the tier, Charizard, Tauros, and Magmortar. It also also allowed it to stay in against things like Medicham, Hitmonchan, Nidoqueen, and Sandslash if needed, giving it much needed flexibility in its play. Regirock was also more offensively apt thanks to its solid base 100 attack stat, and it even had Thunder Wave. Probopass didn't even have the luxury of its steel typing giving it any distinct defensive advantages either. It couldn't actually check the top tier Pokemon whose stabs its steel typing let it resist like Jinx, Gardevoir, and Haunter, because they all carried a coverage move that hit Probopass for quadruple damage. There were also almost no steals in NU. It was really just Magneton. One of the few things Probopass was used for was its unique ability to trap Magneton, easily switching in, withstanding even 2 Specs Thunderbolts and dispatching it with Earth Power. Probopass also differentiated itself from Regirock through its valuable grass neutrality, which allowed it to take on otherwise dangerous threats in Cacturne, Shiftry, Victreebel, and the Seed Bomb neutrality also allowed it to withstand a Belly Drum boosted Linu. Despite the specificity of its niche, it was quite effective, and thus Probopass saw some decent NU usage. The addition of Eviolite seemed promising for Nosepass's Little Cup exploits at first, especially since it became monstrously specially bulky in Sandstorm. However, its lack of recovery and complete inability to deal damage held it back too much for Nosepass to be a true part of Generation 5 Little Cup. Plus, as always, it was just weak to too many common attacks and was especially vulnerable to the plethora of fighting types the tier was filled to the brim with. On the bright side, Probopass had a great Generation 5. It technically had what was probably the world's smallest OU niche, or at least close to it, because at level 2, it functioned kind of like the legendary Endeavor Aaron. Probopass was theoretically unkillable thanks to a buff Sturdy in conjunction with Pain Split, and would bring opposing Pokemon down to be KO'd by Sandstorm. This was amongst the gimmickiest yet most potentially infuriating strategies Arceus ever brought into creation, and it almost certainly never works against anyone good for many reasons, not least of which was the fact that it could never actually KO sand immune Pokemon, but it was pretty funny. Probopass's real place in Generation 5 came from the significant step up it had in NU. Part of it was a relative lack of quadruple effective moves coming from most of the Pokemon it was meant to check, but it was in large part off the strength of one amazing move Black and White blessedly bestowed upon it, Volt Switch. This allowed Probopass to go from a do-nothing defensive blob to a reliable facilitator of its offensive teammates, turning its own bulk and resistances into an opportunity to help its frailer teammates hit the field to dish out massive damage, unhindered by their own defensive deficiencies. Ground types like Golurk and Golem couldn't reliably block its Volt Switch either, unless they wanted to get crippled by Toxic. Nothing in NU was immune to both Volt Switch and Toxic, with most Charizard foregoing Focus Blast and Tauros foregoing Earthquake. Probopass was a reliable defensive presence, easily able to get Stealth Rock early in a game, and was able to consistently provide switch-ins for the monsters on its team like Choice Band Sock. Its ability to pivot into slow Volt Switch out of Superior was incredibly useful as well. Probopass was also helped out by Generation 5 buffing Sturdy to act as a built-in Focus Sash. It wasn't going to be using Magnet Pull much anyway, and this allowed Probopass to take a big hit in a pinch, especially since leftovers would offset Stealth Rock damage. For example, if Probopass switched into Caracasa, as Caracasa used Shell Smash, Probopass would be at full health even with rocks. Sure, Probopass still had to compete with the amazing top-tier Regirock as a defensive Pokemon, but Probopass's advantages were thoroughly excellent. Its toxic immunity allowed it to safely come in on defensive pokes like Mandibuzz and Alomomola, thus allowing Probopass to further shield its offensive teammates from harm. In addition to all of the aforementioned, Probopass was also able to switch into Rotom Frost's Blizzard without much risk, which Regirock could only dream of doing. Overall, Generation 5 NU finally gave Probopass an opportunity to, at long last, be a genuinely solid Pokemon. Sadly, Nosepass was once again unable to find any sort of niche in Little Cup, as it was A, not that great to begin with, and B, completely outclassed by an actual good Pokemon in Onix. Things didn't start great for Probopass either. After a few well-intentioned but ultimately failed attempts, it was unable to establish itself even a slight niche in Gen 6 NU. Fortuitously, Generation 6 also brought about a new lowest tier, PU, and there things turned around for Probopass, as it fit in perfectly. Once again, its bulk and resistances were put to solid use, switching into strong attacks like Kadabra and Dogio stabs to provide early Stealth Rock and Volt Switch pivoting. But this time around, though it may sound strange, it's true. Probopass's primary set was offensive, using maximum special attack investment, giving its Stab Flash Cannon the power needed to destroy common super effective targets like Mr. Mime and Golem. Special attack investment also made Probopass a more effective Steel Trapper, its Earth Power packing the punch needed to rip through Mawile, Poniard, and Matang. Probopass was already a great partner to offensive Pokemon for its defensive aptitude and pivoting capabilities, but its Steel Trapping ability made it even better at facilitating already dangerous Pokemon like Specs Chatot. Of course, course, Probopass could run a more traditional bulky set to great effect as well, maintaining its excellent volt switch pivoting while easily devouring special attackers like Ninetales and Zebstrika, and easily spreading Thunderwave or punishing would-be Thunderwave absorbing ground types with Toxic. Probopass wasn't a metagame superstar, but it was incredibly reliable at doing its job, game in and game out, and its support was critical to the success of teams it was on, as its consistency in facilitating its offensive teammates was nearly unmatched. Probopass was a great Pokemon in Gen 6 PU. Generation 7 saw Nosepass once again completely outclassed by Onix in Little Cup, and sadly Probopass wasn't able to redeem it this time around, not even all the way down in PU. The metagame had experienced severe power creep, and Probopass was rendered incapable of checking anything at all, much less acting as a great pivot. Pretty much every top Pokemon thwarted or threatened Probopass in some way. It just wasn't worth trying to use Probopass to trap Ferocity when it was so useless against almost literally everything else. As such, Probopass saw no use and became untiered. And that's it. So how good were Nosepass and Probopass actually? Well, Nosepass's stats are so incredibly askew. It's like Game Freak always knew it was going to have an evolution, but just didn't give it one in its debut generation for some reason. Fortunately, Probopass was able to bring it some redemption, and flawed as its typing was for a defensive Pokemon, it possessed a myriad of unique useful qualities, which brought it success in generations 5 and 6 after a subpar debut. Sadly, power creep hasn't been at all kind to it, and it became untiered in Generation 7. Hopefully, when Probopass returns in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Mount Coronet will see it fit to bestow upon it some much needed buffs. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False White Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Probopass? How would you buff it? What type of buffs do you want to see for the Gen 4 remix? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.